What's up, everybody? Mike here with Unplayable, and today I'm coming at you with a new type of video. So if you enjoy it, let us know. If you don't like it, also let us know so that I can stop doing this. I'm going to do basically a market watch video, and first I'm going to cover just some interesting things that I think are happening with the secondary market right now. And then I'm going to get into what I think are some of the maybe more undervalued cards right now. So hopefully you guys enjoy this kind of content, and let's just get into it. First thing I'll say is that none of this should be construed as financial advice. I'm just a guy who likes collecting things, and I'm just giving you my personal opinions on the current state of the market. So first thing I want to say is that this is probably the worst time to buy Lorcana cards. The game just came out, supply is clearly not up to demand, and I wouldn't be looking to drop tons of money into the secondary market right now, just given the state of that. I would wait a couple months, see how things shake out a little bit. As more supply hits, I think prices will ease a bit in general. But I think there might still be some deals to be found on cards that are not going to really break the bank anyway. So let's get into it, talk about the market here. So first thing I want to cover is the top three cards. So we've got the big three princesses here. We've got Elsa, we've got Belle, we've got Rapunzel, the three legendary princesses, and they're all hovering around the same price. And the cold foil versions are also hovering around the same price, which I think is really interesting. I think Elsa is not very surprising because one of the most popular Disney characters ever. I think it appeals to both players and collectors. It's in one of the best decks and is one of the strongest cards, if not the strongest card in the best deck or one of the best decks. So not super surprising. Belle actually surprises me a little bit more because I think it's a bit more of a niche card. I love this card. I think it's a really cool legendary, but I don't think it's on the same level as Elsa. But currently the market does, so I think that's really interesting. We'll track this over time and see how it shakes out over the next couple months. Rapunzel, I think, is the best Amber card, hands down, so I'm not surprised that it's up here. And, talking about these three is kind of just to level set the rest of what we're going to talk about. This is the upper end of what, you'd be paying for a card. If you look at the actual prices, especially Elsa, it's not a very deep market, so it doesn't take very many purchases to bring the price up to $60 from 45. So I almost would call it 60. Belle's probably averages around 50, and Rapunzel's a little bit lower. Like, she's solidly between $40 and $45. So out of these three, I would be picking up Rapunzel if I was going to pick any of these up. But again, I think right now is kind of a bad time to pick up a card like this. A lot more booster packs and booster boxes are going to be opened over the course of the next few months, and as people open more cards than the market can support, these prices will drop. The one thing that I think Rapunzel has going for it actually is on the cold foil side. So cold foil being $80 here, it's the same for both Belle and Elsa, but Belle and Elsa both have enchanted versions and Rapunzel doesn't. So I think if you're a really big fan of Rapunzel and you want the coolest version of Rapunzel, the cold foil might be one to keep your eye on, because that will be the coolest version. I wonder what will happen to the prices of the cold foil Elsa and Belle just because the enchanted versions exist. And then looking at the enchanted versions, Belle is quite a bit cheaper than Elsa. And if we look at the previous version of those cards, they're basically the same price. Belle's like maybe on average $10 cheaper than Elsa. So this is really interesting to take a look at. Belle here is almost a third the cost of Elsa. Obviously, Elsa is a much popular character right now, but I think Belle's really cool. I think the art's really great, and oh wow. So there's 1 to 200. Most of them, it looks like, are around 300. This is from, somebody with 0% feedback with 9 sales. So I haven't dug into who this seller is, but I'd definitely be wary to buy this particular one. But even at half the price from Belle to Elsa, that feels a little bit off to me. I don't know if Belle is underpriced or Elsa's overpriced. I suspect Elsa's overpriced, but just something to keep an eye on. I think as boxes get opened and people start hunting more for enchanteds when they can, I think generally the prices of these will come down and settle closer to 150, 250, somewhere around there for most of them. And I know a lot of the other ones are around those prices already, but I think there's room for Elsa to come down. I think there's room for all these cards to come down, really. So next kind of interesting card to talk about is Maleficent, Monstrous Dragon. So if we look, we can see that the price of a normal card is right around the same price as the previous legendaries that we looked at, Rapunzel, Belle, and Elsa, but the cold foil is significantly cheaper cheaper. So Cold Foil Maleficent is around $66 instead of the $80 that the others are. Maybe something to keep an eye on. Might be a buying opportunity for someone who wants to speculate on foil Maleficents. I think this type of card and the deck that it goes in, there's a lot of people who play control decks that really want to bling out their flashy cards, and I think Maleficent is one of those. So it's an interesting at $66 for the cold foil compared to Rapunzel, Belle, Elsa, $80 for their cold foil versions. Let's talk about Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, one of the best steel cards in the game, probably the best steel card in the game, and price is about $25. Cold foil version is $37. So I think for super rare, this is it's definitely on the high end, but I think for the best super rare, it's about half the price of the best legendaries. I think this is another sort of like level setting card. I think when we're looking at the market, this is sort of another data point that sort of just like tells us where we are. So I think looking at the price of the highest legendaries, the highest super rares, the highest rares, that kind of thing, I think that will end up telling us a lot about the market and how much room there is for cards that are cheaper than it right now to come up to meet it, or room for this potentially to fall to lower prices. So nothing particularly exciting about this, but just wanted to call it out a little bit. So let's move on to Hades. I think Hades is a little bit undervalued. It's the same price as this Tinkerbell, and it's a legendary. It's probably the best Sapphire card, if not in the top 2, and I don't think it's really that much worse than Maleficent at $45. So $25 for Hades. I think again, it's either Maleficent's coming down to meet the price of Hades, or Hades is coming up to meet the price of Maleficent, maybe something in between. But this one's an interesting one to keep your eye on because of that price gap. There's quite a few right around that price range. This is a card that I might be interested in looking at picking up at this price. I think like $25 is fairly reasonable for a legendary, and this I think is one of the best legendaries. Now let's move on to Cusco. Cusco is my favorite card in the game, and it is one of the most expensive rares at $7.75. Rares are like pretty common in this game because you get 2 in a pack, and people are opening tons of packs. I think the regular version of Cusco at $7.75, or actually let's call it $8. I think that's fairly like reasonable given how good Cusco is, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this drop to like $5 in a few months when more boxes are opened. Cold foil at $16, you're paying double for the cold foil. That seems like reasonable if you believe that this card is worth $8. Another one that I'm going to be watching closely, I definitely want a full play set of cold foil Cuscos. So this one's going to be one that I'll be picking up at some point in the future. Probably will wait a few months and see where it settles, but yeah. Moving on to Grab Your Sword. So another one of the best rares in the game. This one is about half the price of Cusco, maybe a little bit more than half the price, but I think part of that is to do with the fact that it is in the starter deck. So they'll have one already if they bought that starter deck, and just there's generally more in the market, which is fine. The cold foil, on the other hand, is significantly more expensive than the market price for the non-foil by comparison. So you're paying almost 3 times the amount for the cold foil. So it could just be the dynamic that the starter deck has a Grab Your Sword in it that's a regular version of the card, so people aren't that excited to pay for that version. The cold foil is much more exciting because it's not something that you just get in a starter deck slot. I'm not really sure what to expect on the price of this card, but I just think it's interesting to call out sort of the spread between the regular and the cold foil version there. Now, getting into cards that I think are on the more undervalued side. I think Ariel is really interesting. She's a super rare. She's only $4 right now. If we scroll down, it's like pretty consistently $4, $4.50, $5, right around that range. And while right now she's maybe not the most exciting card, I think it's the type of card that will get better over time as more songs come out. So I think you can imagine a world in which this Ariel becomes a staple in decks as we get more songs and as we get more 5-cost songs specifically. This is one that I'm going to be looking at. I think the spread between the cold foil and the regular version again is really interesting. It's basically 3 times more for a cold foil, so I think I'd be picking up the regular version of this card and just making sure I get my play set before they theoretically go up in price when more songs come out. That turns her into a staple. And yeah, so that's what I think about this card. Moving on to Ursula. I think she's quite good. I think obviously she's really good in multiplayer, but I think even outside of multiplayer, I've seen her in a few red-purple lists, and red-purple being, you know, what a lot of people think is the best deck. I think that the cards in that deck are going to hold some value in general, and I think Ursula is kind of a slept-on card, and at, you know, $8, $9, $10, I think that this is a pretty decent pickup comparatively. $9 for a legendary, I think you probably only play 2 of in that deck, but even still, like this seems like a reasonable pickup to me, and, you know, has some upside if multiplayer becomes more and more popular. Now let's move on to the next one. We're gonna talk about Genie. So when Genie was spoiled and people started playing with him, he was just crazy. He was just a monster, and people are, you know, maybe not playing a deck that includes him as much these days, but still one of the best, I would say, just standalone cards at $2.78. It's at super rare, is like pretty low. So I think if you don't have a playset of Genies yet, I wouldn't be mad paying $2.78 for a Genie, even if it drops to like $2, $1.50 like later. Like it's not, you're not really losing out on that much if this does go down in price, but I think that there's a lot of room for this to increase in price as the meta shifts and as potentially, you know, tempo becomes better. I think it's just a really solid card, and, you know, good stats, good ability. I think it's a very popular character, so this is one that I think is really interesting. So if I wanted to play, you know, a full play set of Genies in my green deck, I think I'd probably be okay picking these up right now. All right, next up, we've got Gantu, our favorite card to trash on, but I think $2.70, $3 with shipping, whatever, almost $4, is very cheap for a legendary card in this first set of Lorcana. I don't know if there's ever going to be a world in which Gantu is really great, but also Gantu's like kind of a meme now, so memes tend to reflect that in their price, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Gantu rise a bit here. I think, you know, maybe the card itself is not great, but I think there's room for this to grow, and I think if you look at the cold foil, which is, you know, 3 times more than the regular, I think that shows it a little bit. And I mean, I'm very tempted to like just buy a full playset of cold foil Gantus just to have it, just for the memes. So definitely going to be keeping my eye on this one. We're moving on to Hans, and I think Hans is a little bit slept on too as a card. I think that in Steel, it's one of the better Steel cards in my opinion. It rewards you for doing the thing that you want to do, which is quest, and allows you to deal some damage here and there, which is real nice. I think $3.40 for like a pretty good super rare is fairly low. I think that the cold foil is fairly low compared to the other super rares that we saw. So we saw Genie and Ariel. So Ariel was $4, the cold foil was $15. Genie was $3, the cold foil was $9. Hans is, you know, $4 and the cold foil is $8, so it's about double the price, which, you know, that's probably pretty standard for the difference between a regular and a cold foil version. So maybe this one is the sort of correct spread and the other two are off, but definitely a card that I'm gonna look at picking up over the next few months. And I think eventually this finds a place. I think it's like a pretty good value card. All right, next up, we have to talk about Tamatoa. So this is a card that I don't think I'm ever buying the non-foil version, but Tamatoa, so shiny. Who is not going to want to play the cold foil version of Tamatoa in their deck, right? And it's only $7 right now. I think that's like not a bad price for a card that, you know, has some value and we've seen do fairly well in specific decks, especially in the Lorcana HQ Discord tournament, in specifically in Lau's deck, who's playing a red-blue item deck. I've played it on the channel, you've seen it. I did not do the deck justice, but he certainly does. This is a card that, I mean, I'm definitely going to want 4 of these in foil, and I think if this strategy becomes more popular, I think in the future, as we get more items, we get better items, we get more item synergies, I think this is a card that's going to have some staying power. I could see a world where the cold foil of this is double or triple what it is now pretty easily because of the type of card that it is. It's a build around, it's like a very flashy card. It's in the name, right? So shiny, you need the shiny version. So that is my thoughts on this Tamatoa. I'm going to be picking more up at this price actually. So this is like the one card that I'm definitely going to be buying more of here. So continuing with the item theme, we've got Maurice, and Maurice is a $2 rare. I think that's a fairly fair price. The cold foil is $4, And I think I'm probably buying some more cold foil Maurices at $4 because, again, the item deck, I want to be blinging it out. Got to have all the shiny items for your deck called shiny, whatever. I really like this card. I think that this card gets way better over time as more items and more item synergies are released. And I think $4 for the cold foil is a pretty good value. So this is one that I'm definitely going to be picking up. I don't know if there's too much more to say about it, but the theme here is basically cards that could potentially be build-arounds in the future, I think have room to grow. Again, the prices here are a little skewed. I think generally they're going to be more skewed towards the most expensive cards. And I think cards like this, maybe people are sleeping on a little bit, and I wouldn't be mad to pay $4 for the cold foil Maurice here. All right, let's talk about Mulan. I think Mulan is a pretty cool build around as well. It's not super popular in the meta right now, but I could see a world in which it is. And the normal version is like under $2 for a super rare. The cold foil is only $2.40. And maybe that's due to the fact that the cold foil is available in the gift set, but I don't know how many of those were printed. I don't know how many of those are available, but that seems like pretty close. So if you are buying a Mulan, don't buy the regular version, buy the cold foil version, spend an extra 50 cents. And I think, this card could see a home in the future in a pretty solid deck. And the cold foil is just a way better value here, in my opinion. Even though it may be in the gift set, who's going to want the regular version over the cold foil? It's only $2.40. I think this one's a reasonable pickup. All right, moving on. We're going to talk about Mickey Mouse, Artful Rogue, another super rare, and this one's also under $2. I think this card's also a little bit slept on. The ability is pretty good. And I think, as the game continues, more action synergies will pop up and more cheap actions will be available for you to play alongside this Mickey. Preventing your opponent from questing is really powerful. It's a shift card, so as more cheaper Mickeys come out, this gets better. I think this is one to keep your eye on. I also, this is 4 times more expensive to buy the cold foil than the regular one. I'm probably picking up the regular version of this card and making sure I have a play set before this finds a home in a good deck. This one's got a lot going for it. I like this one a lot. Let's move on to Friends on the Other Side. Probably one of the best, if not the best card in the game. And the cold foil is only $4.50. So I really like the cold foil of this card. I would probably be buying them around here. Yes, it's a common. You're going to see a lot of them, but every Amethyst deck that exists is going to play 4 of these forever. So I think that the demand on this card, especially cold foil, is going to sort of stay high for a really long time. And this is, definitely one to keep your eye on. So similarly, Dragonfire. This is, obviously a little bit more expensive, double the price, but it is an uncommon. And, people are going to, again, want to foil out their control decks. I don't know why, but I've noticed that control players just really like bling, myself included. But this is one of the best removal cards in the game, obviously. And the art is really great. It looks really good in cold foil. And I think that this is a decent pickup at this price. I think waiting to see what happens here, totally fine as well. But this is one to keep your eye on. I think the cold foil, especially of Dragonfire, is going to be something that people who play the decks that have it are going to want to chase after. And there are a lot of decks that play Dragonfire. All right, last 2 cards. We've got one, You've Forgotten Me. Uncommon, obviously, so regular version is not very expensive. Cold foil is $1.75. So I think people are sleeping on this card a little bit. I think it's one of the best cards in Amber. Can really ruin your opponent's day. And the cold foil of this looks really sick. At only $2, I think this is a pretty good buy. I can see this card getting better and better and going into decks that didn't exist, as they print more Amber cards and as people become more innovative with Amber strategies. So I really like this card. I'm probably buying a full playset of this at $2, not gonna lie. Lastly, we're going to talk about Grammatala, another staple in blue. I think that this card will probably always be played in blue decks, often at 4 copies, and the cold foil is only $2. I think let's call it $3, like $2-3. But I think that's a pretty good price for a card that, again, is going to go into a lot of control decks, a lot of ramp decks. I think this is another one where if you're paying $2 for each copy of your cold foil Grandma, I think that's totally reasonable, and I'm probably going to do that. So that's it. Let me know what you guys thought. I hope you enjoyed this. Tell me what you agreed with, what you disagreed with. Tell me I'm crazy. I want to hear your opinions and what you think about the prices of these cards and where the market is trending, what cards you think are undervalued or overvalued, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.